All right, everyone, welcome back into another fantasy football video. We're going to be breaking down the top rookies to draft in your dynasty leagues. And the way we're going to do that is going pick by pick. Let's start off with the first overall pick, which is going to be an easy one for you guys. And that's going to be Ashton Jeanty. He is clearly set up to be the most valuable position player this year, as well as probably for the next few years as well, being drafted to the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't really need to tell you what he did in college. You guys already know that. But let's just talk about what he is getting into in the NFL with the Raiders. Okay, he is a clear RB1 for the Raiders. The one slight knock that we would have on him is that he might not be a 3-down running back. He might not get that third down, passing down work. And I would kind of expect that. But if you look at some of the players that are behind him on the depth chart, they don't really have a third down running back there, passing down back there as well. So he might end up even getting that work there as well. Another takeaway that I have with Jeanty is he is kind of that prototypical Pete Carroll type running back, and I think that's really why they went out of their way to draft him with that early ADP. You know, some people might question that actually for a young team that is still building, but I think Pete Carroll wants to win now. That's why they trade for Geno Smith, and so with that, I do think we can expect a sizable workload for Jeanty as well. You know, think about, well, obviously Marshawn Lynch, think about Chris Carson. Those are players that did get heavy workloads, and obviously Jeanty is going to be an extreme talent, and I expect him to fully be utilized as a workhorse running back, especially early downs. And I also kind of think that he is their best offensive weapon. A lot of people might say it's Brock Bowers. I wouldn't argue that. Obviously, Jacoby Myers is there as well, but I think the offense is going to flow through him. Okay, so that's going to be a big advantage to him as well. Another benefit that some people might not notice is the fact that they have Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly, you know, some people might hate on him a little bit, but the one thing he has been really good at is establishing the run. You know, his 4 years as an NFL coach, his offense ranked 1st, 9th, 14th, and 4th in rushing yards, which is obviously pretty darn good. And so he's kind of the clear RB1 and just a clear top choice for us to be drafting. So is going to be pick number 2. And that is going to be rookie Omarion Hampton. Now, this is where we do get, I guess, a little bit controversial with some of the picks that we're going to be getting to because he does have Najee Harris in front of him. This is less of a lock and load, but that's going to be the case with every single other rookie as well. And so with that, I think in terms of longevity, he's actually the player that does give us the most upside longevity-wise besides Jeanty. And that's because you look at Najee Harris, he is a solid runner. I think he does get a little bit too much hate. He is a solid running back. And you would look at the fit for Harris in the Chargers offense, and that's a great fit. That being said, Hampton's also going to be a great fit in this offense as well. It's a great scheme for him to land in. He is a better runner than Najee Harris as well. The one concern that I have with Hampton is he might not be a 3-down running back right away or ever in his career. He can catch the ball at the backfield. He averaged 3.2 catches last year, but this is a pick that you are making for next year, the year after that, maybe not this upcoming season necessarily because Najee Harris is there. But again, Harris only signed a 1-year contract. Now, those first 2 picks are some of the easiest 2 picks to rank. If you look at some of the industry projections that are out there as well, they're going to differ a little bit as well. So let's take a peek at some of those and we'll get back into my ranks and my thoughts as well. So if we take a peek at a site like Fantasy Pros, they have Jeanty and Hampton 1 and 2. After that, they have Hunter, McMillan, so 2 receivers after that. Then we have Jenkins, who I actually really like. Henderson, which is interesting. RJ Harvey, who obviously landed in a good spot in Denver. We got Ibuka there, and then the 2 tight ends. Okay, obviously the tight end position can be very valuable if you hit on them. There is risk, though, in taking the tight ends. Obviously, if they don't hit, you're kind of SOL missing out on those big upside skill positions that can win you weeks for years. Now, if we look at a site like Fantasy Pros, RotoWire, not Fantasy Pros, we just looked at Fantasy Pros, but RotoWire, it's much more in line with really how I see things here, and there's not much difference for me actually here, guys. I think Jenkins actually lands in such a great spot there in Cleveland. You look at RJ Harvey, maybe questionable there, but in terms of upside, I don't mind that, chasing that. Hunter in Jacksonville, we just really don't know the role he's going to be in, and so for me, that's actually kind of risky there. There's potential that you don't even get any usage out of him actually at all. Maybe he does end up being a cornerback. I don't think we're expecting that, but that is part of the equation there as well. So I actually might knock him down a little bit there as well. We look at McMillan. He's there as receiver number 2. And then Matthew Golden, who arguably has the most upside out of any receiver in the draft at receiver number 3. He lands in an interesting spot. And then we do have those 2 tight ends as well. Okay, so we are getting some differing thoughts there as well. So I did want to touch on that before we get into my ranks, just to show you guys that it really does open up after those first 2 picks. And then from there, it's really up to you guys. And obviously for super flex leagues, Cam Ward's a big decision for people to make. Obviously, you can get to him. He's going to be a starter for quite some time. From that point on, I don't know if we necessarily need to reach for any quarterbacks there for super flex leagues. But let's go ahead and get into my pick number 3. And so, yeah, some people might not like Jenkins being my 3rd overall pick. That's okay with me. I actually love the talent for him going into the NFL draft. When you look at his vision, speed, burst, and ability to get to the hole, I would argue that he was the best in the draft at doing that. Now, when you tack on the size and speed for Genty and Hampton, that's where you might knock Jenkins a little bit there, and I understand that. But he actually arguably lands in a stellar spot there with Cleveland. I wouldn't say the best spot. I would still argue Genty has that. But Jenkins, I think in terms of longevity and in terms of upside for the season, you could argue he actually might be the 2nd overall running back for this year in terms of rookies. And it's not like he doesn't have the size and speed, guys. He was 6 foot, 221 pounds. Now, he could get some occasional 3-down work, but you got to remember Jerome Ford is still there. Jerome Ford is a good NFL player. Probably got a little bit overused for Cleveland just because they're forced to use him. Good, talented running back. We're not going to take anything away from him. But in terms of short down work, in terms of goal line work, that should be going to Jenkins. And I do think it's important to call out they did draft Dylan Sampson as well, who is a rookie running back himself as well. This, to me, I actually read into it that they felt the need to really attack this position, as well as the quarterback position, taking 2 quarterbacks against Sanders in the 5th round, which is obviously an interesting thing there. Love the clip of the Browns drafting Sanders. Interesting there. But I actually like the fact that they were attacking weaknesses in their offense specifically. They have a good defense. They knew running back was a weakness. They knew quarterback play was a weakness. They attacked it. And I'm not too worried about Sampson. I think Jenkins is going to be the clear-cut workhorse running back. Maybe not this year right away, but I think down the road, he's going to be a highly valuable asset for a few years here in the NFL. Now, obviously, the biggest concern with him would be the fact that he is not going into a good offense either this season or potentially 4 seasons to come. That quarterback room is still a big concern, and there can be good running back production out of running backs in bad offenses, don't get me wrong, but you would obviously want them to have a better quarterback and better offense to feel a little bit more comfortable, and that's why I actually agree that Hampton should be over Jenkins. And so we go ahead and get into my 4th overall pick, guys. This is going to be, honestly, a little bit of a reach. I am chasing the upside here with this rookie rank, okay? And it's a spot that I actually like. It's a spot that some people might say it's a little bit of a homer pick, though, given the fact that it's going to be a Green Bay Packers receiver. And with that, you guys probably already know who it is. And that, for me, is going to be Matthew Golden, okay? I actually just love the setup and the spot for Matthew Golden. As a Packers fan, I was actually hoping that they would go out and draft Matthew Golden. To me, he's the receiver in that draft that holds the most upside. Now, don't get me wrong, McMillan was the safest pick out of the group. McMillan is most likely going to be Michael Pittman. The thing with me with Matthew Golden is I could not really peg him down as any specific type of receiver, and that just goes to show you the versatility that he has. Okay, you can't put him in a box, and that's the thing that I like. Also, he's a player that should be an every down type of receiver there as well. Obviously, he tested out really well, running a 4.29 40. He is 5'11", 191 pounds. So basically what you'd want out of an NFL receiver. The team does like to get a lot of chunk plays there with their offensive scheme, which really fits Matthew Golden and how he was used for Texas, at least in the second portion of the season for sure. And if you look at it, guys, Christian Watson, who is more of a deep field, downfield threat as well, is going to be banged up to start the year as well. He should be an every down player. He does block decently well as well. The issue that we have with Matthew Golden is that he needs to earn his role. That's the one thing there with Matt LaFleur, is that players really do need to earn the role to get that playing time. And for me, guys, I will say, like Romeo Doubs, Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed, they probably all will start the season out being the starters for that offense, and then we'll see what happens when Christian Watson comes back around. But I do think Matthew Golden is someone that, as season progresses, will slowly but surely become a player that we want to have on our rosters. And I think even so for the year after that and the year after that, I think he has the most upside among the receivers in this NFL draft, and he falls into a great offense with a quarterback that does like to throw deep. And so that last pick, guys, I was chasing a little bit outside. And so with pick number 5, we are going to go a little bit safe. I think McMillan is an extremely safe option. Again, the worry that I have with him is I don't necessarily see the massive upside where he could be just a standout, maybe a potential top 10 receiver for us in fantasy football leagues. I do think he, however, will be around a top 15 to top 45 receiver for the prime years of his career. And again, I think the best comp for him is going to be Michael Pittman Jr. Okay, Michael Pittman Jr. has had some stellar seasons in the NFL, but he is a little bit subject to the offensive style. We saw last year Josh Downs, who I would argue about the same talent level, they're different talents, get a little bit more used last year because they were just focused on getting the ball early in the offensive sets. And so it does depend on how Bryce Young is going to be able to operate. And right now, Bryce Young is typically throwing the football on short and intermediate routes. He doesn't throw the ball downfield as much, which is, again, where I think McMillan is going to really excel. That being said, you got a young quarterback with a young receiver. Hopefully they can develop the chemistry there. Another issue you could argue would be the fact that, especially for this year, it's the fact that Adam Thielen's still there. Again, I don't know if we necessarily need to worry about that for maybe next year, but this upcoming season, a little bit. They do have Jalen Coker there, who I actually like a decent amount. I was a little bit bummed out in terms of best ball drafts, in terms of value, that they did take a receiver, that the Panthers did, because I thought Coker could end up being a good value. That's obviously not going to be the case. And then they did get Xavier Legette last year as well. So they are investing in this offense. But this is a big investment, getting a receiver at pick 8. And so I think they might end up just kind of forcing it in if it, even if it isn't working out. And so the biggest thing is Bryce Young and the offense needs to continue to be on the rise and continue to improve. And if he does, this is obviously going to be an easy pick. All right, so the next pick is going to be another pick that, again, is a little bit more aggressive, but I do think that the upside can be there for both this season and for the extended future as well. And that's going to be RJ Harvey. Okay, again, that could be a little bit of a reach for some people. But you got to remember who is the coach that drafted him. That is Sean Payton. And Sean Payton has a type, and he can be pretty bullish on some players. Remember during the draft, after they picked Bo Nix, his comments about him were kind of alarming at the time, and obviously Payton ended up being correct about that. And if you look at kind of how Denver went about drafting RJ Harvey, I think it was pretty clear that they knew that they wanted to get him, but they also knew where they could get him. They traded back a few times and then were able to get him relatively a little bit early. It kind of felt like a reach at the time as well in the draft. And so that really tells me that Sean Payton really likes him. And let's just take a peek at some of the quotes that he had specifically said, Sean Payton, that is. Basically said that they knew that they weren't going to be able to get Genty, and so he focused on who would be the next running back that he would want to pick. After 2 hours of watching film on RJ Harvey, he basically said, okay, be quiet. This is our guy. Okay, and so that's obviously a fun quote there. And again, the thing with Sean Payton is he can be very bullish on players that he wants, and it does seem like he was pretty bullish here. You know, he was comparing RJ Harvey against one other player, and that was actually Darren Sproles, which I do think is a good comp. And he has said that he could use RJ Harvey as more of the Joker player. He has been searching for that kind of Joker type player. Okay, Alvin Kamara's been in that role. Darren Sproles is obviously a type of player that would fit into that role as well. It seemed to me like Jaleel McLaughlin might actually be the player that fell into that role last year. That didn't end up happening. I thought McLaughlin was good, and it seemed like Sean Payton was just testing out a bunch of running back combinations because he wasn't happy with the running back position. He did try to force Audric Estime into a thing, and maybe Estime will be the goal line back. That is my concern with Harvey, is he might not be a complete, 3 down and short yards back, but I still think we're going to get a lot of usage out of him in the passing game, as well as early down work as well. Now, he'll have to prove that, but again, given the fact that Sean Payton fell in love with Harvey, I think there's a good chance that Harvey will be the running back that we want to get to as well. All right, and so because the video is getting a little bit longer, we're just going to rapid fire here. Picks 7 through 12. They're a little bit more straightforward in terms of my thoughts as well. So Travis Hunter as the receiver number 3, as the pick number 7. The one concern that I have with Travis Hunter is he might split some work, obviously, being the cornerback as well. I would argue he's a better option at the cornerback position as well. And also, when you're playing both sides of the football in the NFL, to me, just reading into it, you're probably going to be a little bit more likely to be playing a little bit banged up as well. At some point, he might have to make a choice as to whether or not he's going to be a receiver or a cornerback. All reports say that that's not going to be the case, and I understand that. But at the same time, there is still that risk there as well. This could end up being a 0 on the board. And so for me, I would rather take some of those safer and other receivers that also have more upside. Again, Golden has a chance to be the top receiver in that Packers offense, and I kind of expect him to be. McMillan as well. He should be a very safe prospect there as well at the receiver position. And then those other running backs to me are in better spots. And so for me, Travis Hunter is getting knocked down a decent amount, but I couldn't knock him down too much. Another player that I don't necessarily love the landing spot is Travion Henderson. They do still have Stevenson's there, who they do really like. Stevenson is a short yards back. I actually think Henderson will be used a lot like he was in the same way at Ohio State. Okay, he's going to get the third down work. Probably going to be basically how Antonio Gibson was used while Stevenson was healthy last year, which is not a bad thing. I just worry that we're not going to get RB1 upside out of him. Okay, RB2, pretty safe there, I would say. RB3, pretty safe there. He's not going to be a wasted asset, and that's why he's being in there at pick number 8. Now, you could argue that both Colston Loveland and Tyler Warren would be two players that actually should be moved up the board, given the sense that tight end is a very valuable position. Brock Bowers obviously paid off. We know Kyle Pitts is a rookie tight end in his rookie year, did really pay off, and then since then did not pay off as well. We see Sam Laporta paid off 2 years ago and then kind of fell off a little bit last year as well. But the point is that there isn't too much risk as long as they're getting the playing time that they're projected to get. They should both be instant starters, and at the very least, if they're going to be at least top 15 tight ends, it's not really a wasted pick here. If you're going to get a starter for the next 5 years in your Dynasty leagues, it's a pretty good spot to be in. And if you have the potential to get a tight end that could be a top 5 tight end, obviously you'd want to take that risk. And that's where you could argue they could actually be a little bit higher if you guys like them. Obviously, a lot of people are going to like Loveland being in that Ben Johnson offense. They're going to reflect on Sam Laporta and how he was used, and I'm okay with that. I think that's a fine comparison. I just need to see it first with the tight end position. Now, from there, I do really love the landing spot for Caleb Johnson going to Pittsburgh. Think about how Najee Harris was used. Well, Caleb Johnson is kind of the same type of running back. I actually think that's just an ideal spot for him to land, and it's a pretty good investment at a low cost there for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then Ibuka is actually a very difficult receiver to rank. I actually really liked him as well. Depending on his landing spot, I could have had him as the top ranked receiver and a little bit higher. Like, heck, I actually like his talent a little bit more than McMillan. If he had went to Carolina, especially given the scheme that Carolina runs, I'd have been like, all right, let's raise him up much higher. But obviously the landing spot going to Tampa is not an ideal landing spot. Now, they have been able to use the receivers, multiple receivers, 3 receiver sets. So it might not be as big of a concern. Mike Evans is getting older. Chris Godwin has had his injuries as well. It was an interesting pick. And so we do have to knock him a little bit. This might not be a pick that rewards us instantly this year or maybe even next year, but in 3 years from now, could easily pay off. And then I do just want to talk about some sleeper picks that I like as well. The first one is going to be Kyle Williams, guys. He was drafted to New England, who, if you look at New England, they really do not have a receiver number 1. During the pre-draft process, I mentioned that I thought Kyle Williams was basically Jayden Reed 2.0, and he kind of falls into a very similar situation as to what Jayden Reed fell into during his rookie season as well. Where if you look at the Green Bay Packers, sure, they had some players that they were invested in that they wanted to get used, but they didn't really have a receiver number 1. Now, Jayden Reed at times kind of became that, but he was a useful player for the Green Bay Packers over the last 2 seasons. And you look at Kyle Williams, he does fall into kind of a good spot. Like, they only had Keyshawn Boutte, who was kind of their receiver number 1. They still have Kendrick Bourne. Jalen Polk was kind of a failed investment last year. Demario Douglas is still there, who's a good player, but I do think you get more upside out of a player like Kyle Williams there as well. And so I do think he is something that could pay off. He is currently going as pick number 23 in Dynasty rookie draft. So basically, guys, he is an easy click if you guys like that investment. Again, he could end up being, and probably will end up being, a good, useful asset for not only the Patriots, but for you guys as potentially a receiver number 3. And a player that I actually really love where he ended up was actually Jalen Lane, who was another player that was on as a potential sleeper for the NFL draft, and he goes to Washington. And if you look at the spot that he's landing in Washington, it really is just a great landing spot. They lost De'Ami Brown to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They also lost Olamide Zaccheaus to the Chicago Bears. Two players that were very good contributors for them later on in the NFL season. Okay, they do have some other players there that have popped a little bit in preseason. Luke McCaffrey was an investment for them last year in the NFL draft, but I actually really like the fit here for Jalen Lane. He actually feels like a perfect replacement for Brown or for Zaccheaus, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him end up being the receiver number 2 to close out the NFL season. And then for a lot of his career, I could end up seeing him be in that role. I actually thought he was very similar to Zay Flowers in terms of like upside and how he could be used. But again, just looking at the offense here with Washington, I don't think it would be any sort of hot take to say that he could end up being Brown or Zaccheaus in the way that they were used. And he could end up being the receiver number 2 and the number 2 pass catching weapon in this offense. And so I do really like that fit there as well. All right, and then I did want to get into 3 value running backs. Okay, the first one is going to be DJ Giddings, who I thought would actually be a very good pick for the San Francisco 49ers. He actually ends up going to the Indianapolis Colts, which I also think is a great landing spot for him as well. If you look at the way Jonathan Taylor runs and his kind of running style, Giddings is a poor man's version of that. Okay, Giddings was a very impressive running back, and I think that he is actually just a great handcuff for anyone that has Jonathan Taylor. Okay, so I do think that that'd be the way you go about investing in him potentially. Now the next player is going to be Kyle Managai, who was picked in the 7th round for the Chicago Bears, which is not a big investment. He's not as likely to pay off because of that. But man, he was someone that really popped up on film for me coming out of Rutgers. Okay, every single run was very talented to me. He's a very physical runner. He did have a heavy workload, never really got injured, but I would say that workload is actually somewhat of a negative as well, just given the fact that he does have a lot of tread on his tires, and he's a little bit of an older back as well. Didn't exactly catch the ball at the backfield, but wasn't terrible in there as well. Now, if you look at his competition, he doesn't really have much. A lot of people want to make Roschon Johnson a thing. I would argue coming into this season, he's already going to be a better option than Roschon Johnson. DeAndre Swift is there. I don't think he's going anywhere now. Swift is a capable running back, but he is also a smaller running back, could end up getting injured. And then if he does, or if they try to take away some of his workload, like they tried to get Roschon Johnson going last year, I actually think this could end up being a very sneaky pick. I actually really love the landing spot for him in terms of value. He's actually someone I might try to target in some best ball drafts as well. And then Bashaw Tutton as well. He's someone that is an interesting pick there, guys. Going to Jacksonville. And if you look at the landing spot there, it is interesting. Okay, he does remind me, and it's a terrible comparison, kind of reminds me of Derrick Henry. And I can't think of a better option than that. But the sense I'm trying to give you guys is that when he gets to his top end speed, he is extremely fast. He ended up running a 4.32 40, which was obviously pretty darn good. Scored 25 touchdowns in his final careers there at Virginia Tech, having 356 total carries. Like, he's a big back, he's a bruiser, and does have that good burst as well. If you look at the running back situation in Jacksonville, it does leave some to be desired. Travis Etienne was a big disappointment last year, and Tank Bigsby, as the season progressed, was really kind of ugly as well. And you got to remember, this was an 4th round pick investment by the Jacksonville Jaguars that's under a new regime there as well. And so they clearly like him. It wouldn't be surprising to see maybe this new regime go with him a little bit more. And so that's going to do it for this video, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you want more fantasy football coverage on the video, just let me know in the comments section below. Please give a like and subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't done so. Yeah, subscribe to the channel. That does help out a lot. Thank you for watching. Good luck with your fantasy football drafts. And as always, let's keep cashing.